Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the True North CFL podcast. I'm your host, Jimmy Leach. Follow me on Twitter at aka Jimmy Leach.
I'm Taylor Curry, and you can follow me at Taylor Curry SK on Twitter and Instagram.
And I'm Carter Kennington. You can follow me on Instagram at Carter Kennington.
And so, for our socials for the podcast, which we recently released, Taylor, would you care to plug those?
Yeah, sure. Our Instagram is True North CFL Podcast, and our Twitter is True North CFL Pod. So go give us a follow.
And be sure, once you're done listening to the show, to like, share, and subscribe. We're available on Spotify, SoundCloud, and YouTube. It's basically everywhere people get their podcasts. So, we're just going to jump in here. For our first segment, we're going to talk about the first game of last week. Hamilton crushed Edmonton 42 to 12. Now, guys, with the deadline being, as we record this, tomorrow, but when this comes out, obviously it'll be on that day.
It'll actually be just finished when we record.
Exactly,
when we
it'll be
upload.
just done right as this podcast release. I know, great timing, right? But
Yeah.
will Edmonton make a trade for a QB at the deadline?
I just think it depends how bad Trevor Harris is hurt. If they think he's going to make playoffs, or if he's going to miss playoffs, sorry, then I think they go for somebody. But if they think he's back, then I think they keep it how it is.
I don't think they're gonna make a trade with someone just because I feel like we would have heard sort of the rumblings of it by now. Like we would have seen someone on Twitter because you know how secretive Mike O'Shea is with his lineup, but we've heard that they wanted to get Caleras and then they countered with Franklin with Toronto and that. So I feel like we would
Yeah.
have heard something similar with Edmonton if they were trying to make a play for a QB.
True. I think it depends on the health of Trevor Harris and how confident that the Eskimos are that they can make the playoffs without him. I think they're gonna struggle, honestly, and I think BC has a genuine shot at slipping in.
They definitely
So
do.
I think they consider it. Do I think they do it though? Again, I'm not sure. It depends on how they're feeling on that day, in my opinion. And if someone calls them with a quarterback saying, "Hey, we got this guy. What do you want to give us for him?" Like you guys mentioned, Toronto is selling quarterbacks. They have Kalaros and Franklin. So maybe whichever one doesn't go to Winnipeg, Edmonton's like, okay, this is going to be our consolation prize or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, you don't really want to go into the playoffs with a quarterback that's throwing one touchdown and 3 picks a game. It's just not going to go good for you.
Yep. So does Dane Evans give Hamilton a hard decision this offseason at QB? Do they stick with him and let Mazzoli walk, or what do you do if you're the Ticats right now?
See, it's tough. Like, I really thought that Hamilton would step down quite a bit after losing Jeremiah Mazzoli, but they're the best team in the league still. They've kept it up. Dane Evans is proving week in and week out now that he should be a starter. So, do you keep Mazzoli? That's going to cost you probably double what Dane Evans is going to cost you, or do you keep Dane Evans and let Mazzoli walk? Like me personally, I like Mazzoli, so I would do what I could to keep him, but he's not going to be the same after an ACL tear. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
I'm thinking that with Masoli, well, every week with Dane Evans, I mean, every week that he does well, you're looking at that sort of price tag is going up every single week where he has another performance like this because it's looking more and more consistent, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm sort of starting to think. I personally, I feel like Dane Evans will be going somewhere else. I just think that Hamilton's got too much faith in Masoli. I feel like
Yeah.
Yeah.
they've sort of started to build Masoli like, okay, like Masoli's like he was sort of he was the backup here, earned the starting gig, and now he's like in that MOP conversation, and that was all because of Hamilton. So I think they want to keep that in Hamilton, keep that story there.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah,
Masoli.
like he. Go ahead.
I was just thinking that Dane Evans is probably gonna. I could see Dane Evans making a move, and I wouldn't be surprised if Toronto finds their franchise guy in Dane Evans.
Ooh.
That's it. Um, For me, they are both. I'm pretty sure they're both in contract years because Dane Evans has been there for 2 years, and usually rookies are on 2 year deals. So they'd both be in contract. Kind of, they'd both be in a contract year. So what I agree with Carter. I think they value Mazzoli a fair bit, and I think you keep him despite the fact Dane Evans has been great. And at first he started off a little streaky, like he'd have a couple good games, and he just lay kind of a goose egg. But he's torched some of the better defenses as of recently, so I think he maybe, yeah, walks in free agency and goes to greener pastures like Ottawa maybe or Toronto.
Oh yeah, he's. I think he's going to get offered more money from other teams if he walks versus if he tried to stay in Hamilton.
Oh yeah, no
Well,
doubt.
Yeah.
but here's the thing with Dane Evans. In April this year, he signed an extension with Hamilton through 2021.
Oh, so he's
Really?
under contract. Okay, that
Yeah, and
changes things.
Mazzoli's your free agent this year. So
Okay, then yeah, in that case, I'd let Mazzoli walk and roll with Dane.
Yeah, I don't want to try and hold on to both of them. That's just too much. Well,
Yeah.
actually, if you signed Dane Evans before, you probably didn't spend too much on him. So you might
no,
be able to hold both and have a dual threat.
yeah, no, that's true. That's very true. Because I mean, Mazzoli was making, let's see, 2 year deal worth $700,000. So two thirty
Oof.
five, and the second year was 335. So
Oh,
I mean, you got Dane signed already. You're like Mazzoli can't break the bank after tearing his ACL. So I think
Yeah.
that yeah, like they could go with a dual threat. That's a good take.
I could see a team paying a good amount for him. Like I could see Ottawa shelling out,
Oh
handing him
yeah,
a blank check and say, "Put whatever you want on here because we need a quarterback." Or even
absolutely.
Winnipeg. You know, I've heard rumors that they're really interested in Jeremiah Mazzoli, so maybe they, find a way to get him in there, and neither Strevler or Nichols is there next year. So, guys, another big question from this game: what's up with C.J. Gable? He hasn't hit 100 rushing yards since week 9.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like he started off the year hot, 154 yards, 111 yards, but his carries have slowly went down with the team. I mean, they fed him 2 weeks ago against Ottawa. He had 90 yards, but they had to give him the ball 20 times. So it's really tough. Maybe it's just not the CJ Gable we're used to anymore. Maybe he's just catching up with him or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say like the big thing is I feel like the carries have gone down. Like I mean, average of 4.3 yards per carry for CJ Gable this past game. That's not bad, but when you're only giving him the ball 11 times a game, getting three three touches a quarter, I feel like that just isn't enough for him.
Yeah, true. That lack of volume certainly hurts. Also, the fact that C.J. Gable isn't really an explosive back. Like, he's not someone that I think is a guy that's going to take it to the house. He's more of a guy that's going to pound you on the ground and get like 5 to 6 yards per
Yeah,
carry. You know what I mean?
he'll give you a lot of like second and manageable situations.
Yeah, like as opposed to someone like Shaq Cooper, who is a very explosive running back. I think that's also why too, and I think you gotta remember C.J. Gable's getting up there too, right? So
At
it
31
could,
years old.
yeah, it could just be the fact that maybe he's got a bit too much mileage and is starting to slow down as kind of the season progresses.
Yeah, it's just really interesting though. It seems to have taken a turn after week 6 because the first 4 weeks of Edmonton's season, he had over 17 carries a game, and then it dropped off to 8, 8, 18, 15, 12, 10, 12, 11. Like it's the number's almost been cut in half and sometimes lower. So yeah, it's really interesting to see what they're doing with him. And he's only scored 2 touchdowns this year, and that was
And
in one game.
it's weird how in Edmonton's situation, like with the quarterback situation and everything, it's weird how they're giving him the ball less.
Right?
Yeah, I think they'd be, trying to use it more, especially with a lot of those Edmonton receivers. Their numbers have gone down a fair bit since Kilgore's taken over. So it's like you would think that's because, oh, maybe they're pounding it to Gable more. Nope. It's just,
Nope.
yep, it's how it is right now for Edmonton. So the second game of the week, Montreal beat Calgary in a relatively close game, 21-17. Now, guys, how did VA look in his return after his one-game suspension?
I think he looked pretty good, coming off a week where he had off there because of the suspension, and then coming back to play Calgary. Like he completed 62% of his passes, didn't throw a touchdown, didn't throw a pick either though, and he had a rushing touchdown. So overall, I'd say his team got the win. So I think he played pretty well.
I mean, yeah, anytime you're going to be able to best Calgary, especially when they're in their like late season Terminator mode, I feel like that's a plus for you. But yeah, I think he did pretty well. Not much I can say there. No touchdowns, no interceptions, but
Yeah,
yeah, just sort of. Well, I think it's. I think I was expecting a little bit more, but I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
yeah. Like VA, he's a winner. That's just what he does. So in that way, I don't think he lost a step this game. But yeah, no touchdowns, no interceptions. That doesn't help. But I mean, again, they did enough to win the game. So I don't think he lost a step. I thought he looked good at what I saw. Um, Now, guys, in your opinion, who is Calgary's number one receiver and why?
See, that's interesting. Just because they've went through so many guys this year, and so many guys have been hurt. Like overall, uh, stats. Sorry. Overall, like Reggie Bagleton, their best so far. 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns. But Eric Rogers has been there kind of the most this year, not being hurt. But you see people like Josh Huff stepping up lately, and Mayala, and I mean even Richardson Danny's not playing bad. But overall, I'm gonna go with Reggie Bagleton throughout this whole season for them. He's just, I mean, some of the games, he had over 200 yards. So
Yeah, I just think Reggie Bagleton's been the most consistent. You can make a case for Eric Rogers. I'm not going to. Um, I just think Reggie Bagleton. He's he was that. How much was he on fantasy a couple weeks back? He was like almost 11, like
Yeah, eleven
yeah, he was
thousand,
eleven
something
eleven
like
thousand.
that.
thousand.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a reason why he's that number. He's
Yeah.
like one of, if not the best in the league.
yeah, that's true. I would
It's a
say
bold statement, but there's substance to it.
I
That's
agree.
true.
Yeah, since we all kind of agree about Bagleton being their top receiver, then who has been their best fill-in receiver for starters? Because we've seen Markeith Ambles is out for the season. Juwan Breskinson went down, among others. So who would you guys say has been the best fill-in for Calgary?
I mean, Josh Huff hasn't played every game, but every game he's played in, he's done pretty well. He's got 4 or 5 catches a game and a decent amount of yards for not being in the CFL that long. So, that's a tough one. I mean, Eric Rogers. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna stick with Josh Huff as of late. He's been stepping up for
Yep.
You're making me sound like I'm stealing all your answers. I was really hoping that you were going to switch last second so I could
them.
take Huff. But I mean, you're sitting here and it's not one of your starting receivers. 9 receptions, 149 yards, and a touchdown with the longest catch of 43. That's crazy for like a backup receiver. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
I would say it's actually one of the national receivers who's been kind of replacing that Jawan Breskinson role. Because he was a pretty good receiver at the start of the year, but unfortunately he's been hurt for a while. I say it's either Herji Mayala or Colton Hunchuk.
oh,
Because Ayala has gotten better as the season's gone on. He's kind of been starting at the field wide receiver spot, and then he's also mixed in that slot spot too. So he's been a lot better now and looking pretty good. And again, Colton Hunchuk, whenever he's played, he's also looked good. So I would say it's one of the two national receivers.
Good point.
Now, of these two teams, which do you think has a better chance of going to the Grey Cup, Calgary or Montreal?
See, I think it's Montreal, but it's going to be really close, and I'll explain. Like Montreal should have no problem beating BC or Edmonton in the playoffs when that time comes, but then you have to go to Hamilton, and that is a tough place to play, especially in the playoffs. Now, Calgary is Calgary, so you can't ever count them out. but you're going to be playing a really good Saskatchewan team, and you're going to be playing possibly a pretty good Winnipeg team defense wise. No offense, Carter, but
No, I
uh,
respect that. I respect that statement.
but it's yeah. So I say Montreal, but it's not that far apart between.
Yeah, I mean, because I just think Montreal's got that one easier game in the semifinal. I'm gonna say that it's more likely that Montreal makes it as opposed to Calgary. I mean, it could be Calgary versus Montreal in the Grey Cup this year. I
Yeah,
would personally hate it if Calgary made it to the Grey Cup again, but I mean,
Yep.
it could. It could happen.
I think everyone would hate it except for Calgary.
Yeah, at
Yeah,
this
pretty
point,
much.
yeah, they've made it so many times. I'm so sick of Calgary Grey
That's
Cups.
that's that's when you know the entire league starts rooting for the Eastern team.
Yeah.
Literally
Yeah,
every other
yeah.
team is like,
Well, it's
my
like they're the
God,
New
let
England
it end.
Patriots of the Canadian Football League. They just always make it, so a lot of people get turned off because it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm sick of these guys, you know. But if we're talking about who has a better chance, I'm looking at the matchups. Montreal, they're playing one of Edmonton or BC, and then they're gonna play Hamilton. And you look at Calgary and their road to the Grey Cup, they are going to either be playing both of Saskatchewan and Winnipeg or just one of those teams. And I think that's a more difficult road than what Montreal has in front of them. So if we're just talking odds, I say it's Montreal.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
and go
oh,
ahead.
no, you okay? Okay. I mean, if you're Calgary, if you are like a lot of people say that Winnipeg is. I mean, and rightfully so. You could say Winnipeg's the easier game out of those two. But if your defense sleeps for a second and you let Strevler get the wheels going, then that game gets 10 times harder than what it should be for them.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
absolutely.
thinking with that. Like that's why I think that Calgary has a slightly tougher road because like I feel like Winnipeg has a better chance of beating Calgary than BC or Edmonton would have a chance of beating Montreal.
Well, and I think the thing is too, it depends. Like if Calgary loses home field advantage and they have to go to Winnipeg, no matter what Winnipeg's offense looks like, that is a tough place to play.
They've
So,
only
and
dropped
then
one on the road this one at home this year, I mean.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Saskatchewan, I think, is the same too. So it's like it's tough going to those places. So yeah, Montreal.
So for the following game, Saskatchewan crushed Winnipeg on their home turf, 21-6 at Mosaic Stadium. Um, so guys, with Strevler struggling, does Winnipeg have to acquire another quarterback?
I think you got to bring someone in just for the playoffs, and I'm not saying to start over Strevler. He's been in the system for 2 years now, so you got to roll with him. But some insurance would be nice. I think we'll talk about it in news a little bit, but they're inquiring on some quarterbacks, and yeah, I mean they're looking to get Zach Collaros. So yeah, I think they need somebody to back them up. McGuire is their backup, but I mean, has he even thrown a pass that counts in this league?
Nope.
So they got to be a little careful with.
I mean, I think they obviously see something in Maguire because he's been around for a little bit now. I think this is his second or third year. I want to say that.
I thought he was
So
a raw
there,
rookie.
I don't think so. I think he's been here for a year.
Okay.
Um, so like I think they see something in him. So, but yeah, having that third QB from somewhere else would be a nice touch. But yeah, you got to stick with Strevler for now, and hopefully be able to stick with them, be semi-consistent going into the playoffs.
Strevler seems to be struggling a lot recently, so I would definitely bring in a quarterback to at least challenge for that job come closer to playoff time. Because Winnipeg's basically a lock for the playoffs. If not,
Yep, they
yeah,
are.
they are a
They are
lock. They
locked. Yep.
clinched. Okay, good. Yep. So,
Just a little stat. Sean McGuire signed with the Bombers May 15th, 2019.
Oh, okay.
Tried out for
yep.
like the Vikings and the Dolphins. He has never thrown a pass in the CFL.
Okay, yeah. So
Okay.
he
Well,
is
then
a
I
raw
retract
rookie
my
then.
I
Yeah,
retract my statement then.
Yep.
he's 23 years old. So that'd be just scary if anything happened to Strevler. For no offense to him, but for that to be like who's trying to get you to the Grey Cup.
Yeah. And I definitely think you need an experienced backup or just someone to push Strevler, like I said, because he's been
Exactly.
struggling recently. So, I
Just
mean, if he persists with that, you could pull him and put someone else into play.
Yeah.
So, onto the Riders side of the ball here. With Shaq having over 200 yards receiving, is he a top 5 receiver in the league now? Why or why not?
Hands down, he's top 5 in the league. I don't think you can really ask. I mean, to me, his competition is Brian Burnham, who is a great receiver, but isn't helping his team uh, in the start of the season. He didn't help them much. And then it's Braylon Addison and Shaq Evans. Like, those are my top 3 in no particular order. You know, Addison has been outstanding this year, and Shaq Evans, I mean, such a step forward from last year. Didn't even score a touchdown last year. He's got 5 touchdowns this year, and he broke 1,000 yards. So I think it's not a question of top 5. I think it's a question of top 3.
Um, yeah, I agree with that. Is that do you know if the CFL does a like for their like year end awards? Do they have a most improved player?
No,
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 that's
because
they
something
that would
should.
be
they should
they
have.
should,
Yeah,
and it should be Shaq Evans
Yeah,
because 100% it should be. Um, but yeah, I agree with that top three that you gave, and yeah, I mean, really, there's I feel like this year more than most there were like just a surge of these players who last year were sort of just in the background and now they're really hitting their stride.
yeah.
But yeah, and Shaq's leading that charge.
true for sure. I think he's a top 5 for sure. Top 3, I think it's debatable, but he's definitely a top 5 for me. Now I got another question just because we were talking about most improved player. When do they give out their awards for that kind of
I
thing?
I think it's right before I think it's the week before the Grey
It's
Cup.
yeah, it's Grey Cup week. They do it, I think, on the Saturday night before the game on Sunday.
Okay, because I'm thinking we do a our own little award show, and
Oh,
then we can add that most improved player in there. Because I think we're all gonna have very different opinions on that. Because Shaq's definitely improved a lot, but I don't think he's the most improved player of the entire year. And if we ever do that, I'm just not gonna spoil who I think it is right now.
oh,
But
Yeah, no, we'll definitely
I
have
I
that in
like
a
I
future
like that
episode.
yeah,
idea.
we'll have
Yeah.
that in and let us know in comments. Maybe we'll make a post about it soon or that week. We'll kind of put all the different awards we're gonna have, and it's like, okay, one post will be like, who do you think should win this, and then who do you think should win that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
We could definitely probably do something like that.
Oh, we will.
Yeah, fans, let us know. All right, and we might do that. And then for our last question about this game, Winnipeg's defense played decent for the first half, then kind of started to come out in the second half. They started to kind of fold and I guess get tired. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think they were a little gassed. I mean, it was a really it was a very big defensive battle the whole game, but they let up those 13 points in the second half that kind of killed it. But I think one of the big things for a positive for the Riders and a negative for the Bombers is that the Riders kept Willie Jefferson off the stat sheet completely. Like, they focused in on him, and he didn't have one stat. So I think that played a very big part in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, I think it's just the fact that the defense played how do I even word this right? I think that it's more Saskatchewan going into the locker room at halftime and saying like, this is what we got to do to start, getting those points on the board. And the reason why we're talking about that and not why both teams picked it up is because Winnipeg just couldn't do the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. I just think this was a defensive battle for most of the game because until the Shaq Evans touchdown, it was just field goals and rouges that were being scored this entire
Mm.
game.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah,
kind of
that's what I was gonna say. I didn't really agree with your term of rushed because that insinuates that it was along the same lines as the Hamilton Edmonton game, which I
yeah,
don't
no, it
think it
wasn't.
was.
No, it was a
Um,
slugfest for most of the game, but at the very end, Saskatchewan started to pull away, and it was pretty
yeah,
clear what was
like
how the game was
you
going
could
to happen.
like almost claim that the last Saskatchewan touchdown was garbage time. I wouldn't, but you could
I
make that
wouldn't
argument.
either because
It sealed the
Winnipeg
game.
just had, I think, a field goal that drive before, and they were close to kind of, if they get a touchdown on this next drive, they're back in it, and they almost did
Uh,
the drive before, but
it's just
with LJ McCray coming up clutch with that TSN turning point there, that kind of sealed the Bombers' fate, in my
Yeah.
opinion. And the Riders capitalized on that drive, and they after that they kind of asserted it's like we're winning this, you know.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yep. But
Let's.
scoreboard wise, that score does not look good for Winnipeg. That's
Oh
why
no, it
I
does not.
worded it the way I did. Yeah, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's move on. This thinking about this makes me sad.
well, I
Hey,
still gotta answer this question here. So, well, Winnipeg's defense, we talked about this on a show before that they look like they're slowing down the second half of the year. And the game before this, tell me if I'm wrong here, but Dane Evans torched them. So
yeah, 33-13, yeah.
maybe someone's found a chink in the Winnipeg's defense's armor, and they're just everyone knows now, and they're exploiting it.
I think they may have gotten complacent ever since Big Hill came back. Because remember, he missed a chunk of the beginning of the year, but that's when they were really like on top of their game.
Oh yeah, it could be that.
Well, it almost seems too that things almost took a turn when the whole Andrew Harris thing came. You know, like
Oh
they
yeah,
were they were rolling pretty good, and then the whole steroid thing came out, and things just slowly shifted there. But I want to throw this out while I have a chance. Um, this just seems confusing to me. The leading receiver for Winnipeg is Kenny Lawler
wow.
for
Well, I mean,
yards.
he did have that one game with like 10 receptions,
Yeah, he went
a
off.
It's
hundred and
true,
however many yards.
but I mean, they have two receivers over 500 yards this year, and the closest after is Andrew Harris. So, I mean, I know he's a receiving back, but I expected more to like Drew Wolotarski and Chris Matthews when he was there, but I just things aren't clicking
Yeah.
there as much as they should be.
Well, I mean, Wolotarski was productive when Nichols was there. It's just Struthler's not the type of again, he's a run first kind of guy or like first read and go. So
Well, it's
that's
weird
I
because
think has a lot to do with it.
well, Strevler and Wolotarski were teammates in college,
Really?
so it's
Oh, they
weird.
were.
You'd think they'd have that chemistry.
Well, and especially like Strevler threw the ball 40 times last game. Like
Wow.
that's quite a bit for him can like for regular. Like he ran 12 times, but he tried to throw it 40 times. Only got 26 completed, but
I
that's a high throwing number. It's like they're
I wanna
testing it out.
I wanna have a word with whoever decided to have Strevler throw that many
Yeah, because
times.
he's looking. They're trying to play him more like a conventional quarterback these last two games because he threw for about 300. He didn't run too much last game either, so it
Oh yeah,
was
he only ran 12 times for 48 yards. So
yeah. So I think someone's in their ear said, "Hey, let's try to turn Strehler into a more conventional quarterback," and it's just like it's not working. You know, so I think they go back to the old formula when they were winning games.
yeah, and then it makes you wonder: is that a Paul Laplace decision or a Mike O'Shea decision? Because a little off topic, but I heard a small rumor today with all the movement in Toronto that they might be looking at Mike O'Shea as, or not Mike O'Shea, sorry. Yeah, sorry, Mike O'Shea
Lapo.
as the head coach. Yeah, but in Toronto.
Wait, Lapo,
Really?
Lapo in Toronto, or did
No,
you say they
Mike
were gonna
O'Shea,
poach
sorry. Mike
O'Shea?
o- yeah.
Oh, okay, that's
His
interesting.
yeah.
Oh, is this
So
It is.
contract? Oh, yes, is this contract up this year?
I don't
Or
uh
think so.
next
No,
year?
no, no. Both of them. O'Shea and I remember this. Just because like a couple of years back, I remember Mike O'Shea and Kyle Walters. They both signed. I know one of them is through till
oh, they
2020,
did.
and one of them is here till 2021.
Yeah. Well, I thought they both ended the same year because everyone was talking about that.
Oh, hold on. Here we go. The Winnipeg Bombers, they announced Kyle Walters and Mike O'Shea is with the club through 2020.
Okay.
And
Okay, yeah.
O'Shea's agreement keeps him on the sidelines through 2019.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So yeah,
what
maybe
does
they
that
And
could get
mean?
him in the off season.
well, and if you remember in the offseason, the Riders wanted to interview Paul LaPolice for the head coaching job, and the Bombers said no, and he seemed pretty mad about that. So maybe he kind of gives them an ultimatum this offseason too. Like, look, like I want to be a head coach again.
Sort of
So
like what happened with Orlando Steinauer and Hamilton, right?
yeah,
Basically they knew he was either gonna leave because he's way too good to just be a coordinator, or make him the head coach. So they initially split it with him and June Jones, and then June left, so Orlando became the kind of made the head coach.
Yeah, and it worked out for them.
It did. They're doing pretty well.
Yeah, and June Jones is getting ready to coach in the XFL coming up.
Oh man, yeah. We'll see how
Him
long
and
that
Mark
league lasts.
Trestman. Yeah, him and Mark Trestman.
All right,
That'll
over
be
under.
interesting.
Oh, and Jamie Elizondo, but over under. How long does that league last? 1 year. Over
What?
under.
Oh, I'm sitting in the middle. It's last on a year. That's it. Like they'll get through a season, and I think that'll be it.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I had a mic issue.
Okay. Basically, over under on how long the XFL is gonna last. 1 season.
I'm gonna go over because I think that with the AAF folding, I think Vince McMahon's sort of gonna get his stuff together, and I mean he hired an actual an actual football commissioner.
Oliver
Like,
Luck, yeah, Andrew
yeah,
Luck's dad.
Vince McMahon's literally just sort of, instead of him being like the decision maker, he's just sat in the back making money from. I think is what he should have done in the first place.
That's true. If anyone's learned from the failures of the XFL, it's probably Vince McMahon. So
I
Yeah,
think it lasts 2 to 3 years.
I think it lasts. Oh, part of me wants to say 1 year because the AF couldn't even make it for a full year. But
But that's because they had no money.
that's
Like, it was
they
all-
had
it was
some
all-
deep pocketed owners.
Yeah, but Vince has taken out shares of WWE and put in $300 million of his own money at least.
Yeah, like Vince has got deeper pockets. That's why I'm gonna say it at least lasts 1 year because even if they're bleeding cash,
Yeah.
he'll probably
Like,
be able to keep
they'll
it going
finish
for
the year.
1 year. Yeah.
Like the
So I'm gonna
AAF,
go over. I say they last a season and a half. I think
Like,
they're
if
gonna
you-
fold
Uh,
midway through their
injured.
second season. Yeah.
A quick note too: the XFL just came out with their list of draft pool players,
Oh, I saw that.
and yeah, there's a couple former CFL players like Jay Keeps, David Cobb. The biggest one would probably be Dexter McCoyle, Taylor Reed, Terrence Bullitt, and Natai Rogers and Quentin Gaze. So, and there's actually one current CFL player, Montreal offensive tackle Chris Schluger. So that could be interesting to see if anyone
I'm
leaves to
surprised-
go down there.
I'm surprised Leggett didn't try to get in on that.
No doubt, hey.
Well, I mean, he's probably coming back up here. Honestly, like I don't know why he's in the Arena League and not in the CFL right now.
Well, I mean,
It
the
doesn't
Arena League's
make any
over,
sense.
So
Like he's good, and he tore up the Arena League when he got there. He only played a couple games, but he
played like
torched
3
everyone.
games, but he broke a championship record.
Yeah, he had
Yeah.
a pick six in the championship game down there.
Yeah, so he's a guy that I know Moncrief's going probably to the NFL next
Oh,
year
yeah.
for the Riders. So maybe he's a guy they're looking at and being like, hey, we're probably gonna bring this guy in. Just hope
I'd take
nobody
him
notices.
Leggett for sure.
Why do y'all steal all our defensive players? First you take Jovan Johnson.
Bro,
and
bro,
now you take-
bro, you
excuse me,
just had
Winnipeg-
Willie Jefferson.
Yeah, Winnipeg is just full of washed up riders. No
That's
offense.
true. That is
Yeah,
so
like-
true.
Hey, all I'm saying
Nick Devsky.
all I'm saying is Saskatchewan's a farm team.
Bro, no, definitely not. No. Well, you get our sloppy
Yeah,
second players.
Exactly. You guys just like those Saskatchewan sloppy
Yeah,
seconds.
yeah, like Patrick Neufeld. Like,
Yeah.
really, man?
Joshua Hardrick, you had Randy
Dude,
Richards
Patty
at one
Neufeld.
point.
Don't be talking trash about Patty Neufeld.
Bruh, we
How
got
dare
Brandon
you.
Labatt, and even our rookies are probably better than Pat Neufeld.
This one I don't like, but Sam Hurl. I mean, we swapped him a couple
Oh,
times.
that
I'm
was
not
that
big
was a
fan of him.
bust. Yeah.
Yeah, not a fan. He actually might start in place of Cam Judge this week, unfortunately.
Oh man, that's gonna hurt. I honestly think they should start Brandon Barlett over him.
Yeah.
Oh, and then one more thing before we end this segment. Is it me or did Andrew Harris not look as strong in this game?
Not at all. Like I don't know if it was Saskatchewan's defense or the anabolics are wearing off, or it was just an off game. But 11 carries, 67 yards, and where's his? Yeah, he only had 4 catches for 4 yards. So definitely an off game for him. But yeah, I mean, time will tell if it was just against Saskatchewan or what. But yeah, not a good performance at all.
Yeah, same deal as with Gable. Give him the ball more.
Yeah, absolutely.
True, but I think he looked weak because he got taken down a lot on the first, guy there. Whereas Harris is usually fighting off guys and getting those extra yards. He wasn't this game.
But
So I
that's
feel like-
sort of gotta hurt your morale a little bit, though.
True. I mean, maybe
Like,
he just knows there's a drug test coming up, you know?
well, he's gotta play safer so he gets tested.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah,
mean, he has to do
exactly.
mandatory testing now because he got caught. So maybe he's just like, all right, yo, I gotta test, tomorrow. I can't take this, this week. And so
But
maybe
no,
that's why he's looking
it's
like a
gotta
30-year-old running back
it's
now.
it's gotta hurt your morale like when you go in, you get hit on the first guy, you go down, and like the first thing that I'm thinking if I'm Winnipeg, feed him the ball again, sort of work up that confidence. But that's
Yeah.
not really what happened. He only got 11 touches, so
Yeah,
in those scarce touches, he would get hit, immediately go down, get up, and then he would just sort of think, "Wow, that sucked," and then he couldn't really build off of anything.
Yeah, that's true too. I honestly don't know because a lot of people think that he was doing those steroids for a long time and they just caught him now because they kind of started testing when Randy Ambrosi came back, whereas under Orage they didn't test. So the theory is maybe they found something under Orage and then he just got caught now. I know a lot of vets are sort of saying that. What do you guys have to say to that? Especially Carter, the Bomber fan.
what do you got, Carter?
You know what I got? I got. Then why was he in the 2011 Grey Cup? That's what I got. No, um,
Ooh.
that makes me sad. But um, I mean, if it comes out that he's been doing this for years, then he shouldn't be playing anymore. But I mean, personally, I'm gonna stand by him. He has been a really good force in the community in that. So it would suck to have someone who's been a good role model like that be, someone like this.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna
I'm
give
You
him
hoping.
know,
the. Oh yeah, Taylor, go ahead.
uh, just a quick note about last game. I don't know if anyone else caught it, but it looked like it didn't happen because he kept playing after. Andrew Harris did hurt his arm during the game. He did
That's
leave
true.
the game for a portion, and he was holding his arm. So, who knows? Maybe that played a
Hey,
big role in it too. That they didn't want to give him the ball as much because he was in pain and hurting, and they don't want him out long term.
that could be too, honestly. And I will give Harris the benefit of the doubt too. It's just I don't know. It looks suspicious, and the one thing that's been bugging me is he still hasn't named the supplement. That was supposedly tainted. You know.
Well, and he sent it away for testing too. So I'm sure if the results come back bad, we won't ever hear another word about it again. But
Yeah.
if it
That's what
is
I've been thinking. That's what
contaminated,
I've been thinking. How long does that process take? 'Cause he started that a couple of weeks ago.
It
yeah.
depends on probably the amount of money he's willing to spend on it, and because DNA or certain samples they can take months to get back, and some can take a couple weeks. So it depends kind of the process he's using.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. Like it bothers me that he hasn't named the supplement because it's just like you're talking about education and lecturing people on that. It's like, well, then
But
tell us, Andrew. Don't leave us in
but
the dark.
but if he names it and then it comes back clean, that company's going to be really upset with him because he named this company that they have bad stuff, but they really don't.
That's
So
true.
That's
I think he
true, but then
waits.
he'd be caught in a lie, and he'd have to be like, okay, this is what I actually did.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. So I think it's a lot of stuff and he won't talk about it. And I think the only way he talks about it again, if it does come back that it was quote unquote contaminated.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. All right, so on to the final game of the week, where I think this is the fairest one to call a blowout. Um, BC slaughtered the Toronto Argonauts 55-8. Now, guys, have the Argos officially given up on the season after this game?
Well, I think they're officially not playing that much anymore. You put up 8 points in garbage time at the end of the game. It was embarrassing for Toronto to play that bad. Like, I know they're a bad team, but that was embarrassing. BC's not that good of a team, and you let them score 55 points on you. Mike Riley throws 5 touchdowns, and John White has over 120 rushing yards. And I mean, Brian Burnham alone had 145 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, I really think that they have given up. They're just waiting till that last week comes so they can get back on their planes home.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto is they're done. They're done. I've been saying this for a while. Just chalk the season. I think now they're finally going to do it. Yeah, I mean, you give up 55 against BC, which I mean, BC's been looking better, but not 55-8 better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like it. Just give up, please. Trade away your quarterbacks.
Well, like,
Yeah, true.
go ahead.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say they were talking on the Waggle. James Wilder was on there, and they were like, he was talking about, oh, we actually believe we can make it. It's like, dude, even the guy interviewing you didn't believe. Like,
Aren't they statistically out now though?
Well, they are now.
they are now. I don't think they were. I think they were like, oh
That
yeah,
was
we're gonna
before
win
the
out,
game.
and then it's like, no, you're not gonna win out.
No,
So
they had
yeah,
no
they're done.
chance.
It's a bold strategy.
Yeah.
When both your quarterbacks can't throw for over 100 yards, like McLeod didn't play the whole game. He threw 94 yards, but James Franklin started 6 for 9, 32 yards and an interception. That is just not good.
True. It's a tough situation there. Their GM has a lot of work to do in the offseason, for sure.
Oh yeah.
So with this dominating win, you guys think BC can compete for a playoff spot still?
Now, I'm not here to toot my own horn, but a few weeks ago I did say that BC would make the playoffs over Edmonton. I mean, Edmonton only has to win one game and BC's eliminated, but with the schedules coming up, I really think that BC can pull it off. Still.
Well, how many games do we each have left? Because you got to remember that the next, like BC's playing Edmonton next. So
Oh,
Yeah, BC plays Edmonton, and then let's see,
what do they
and
got?
then
Like two games each after that?
well, Saskatchewan is in BC the week after, and then BC has a bye, and then they play Calgary in BC,
oh,
and yeah, so that's going to be tough for them. And then I mean Edmonton's schedule, they play BC this Saturday, and then they have a bye, and then it's Saskatchewan, home and home. So
oh,
it's
yeah.
going to be
I
tough
mean,
for Edmonton.
here's my thing. I think that like with BC, I would give them the edge of the schedule just because I've said this before on this podcast. BC Place is the twilight zone of the CFL. Any team
Absolutely.
can like beat BC there, but BC could also like destroy anybody. They could be 0 and like 17 facing a 17 and 0 team and blow them out because
Yep.
they're at home.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know
true.
what powers they have for their advantage, but it's ridiculous.
Maybe they're still pumping in crowd noise from a couple of years ago.
Oh,
Maybe.
I wouldn't doubt it. I would not doubt that. But yeah, I think BC. I think they could honestly take that playoff spot from Edmonton. What are their current records for both of them, Taylor?
Well, that is a good question. I'll let you know right now. BC is sitting at 5-10, and Edmonton is sitting at 7-8.
Ooh, so BC has to catch up by 1 win or 2 wins.
No,
Sorry.
BC
well, if
has
they
to
win
win
this
out, and
week-
Edmonton has to lose out. That's what it comes
Okay.
down to.
Well, I can see Edmonton losing out. Just because they're playing Sask, and I think BC. Spoiler alert! I think BC beats them, so I think BC just needs 1 win after that, because then it'd be
Would they have
they would have
tiebreaker?
6 after that. So they would have to steal one from
Yeah.
Saskatchewan or Calgary.
See, I think it might come down. Like
difficult.
if BC wins, then I think BC has the record against Edmonton because right now BC is sitting at 0-7 in the division, like division games.
Oh,
So like BC's got to win that Edmonton game, and then they have to try to win the other games. But I mean, yeah, with Edmonton, you got BC bye week, Saskatchewan. So
I think they
it's
lose all
going to come
3
down.
there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And what is BC? It's BC has Edmonton bye week, Sask, and then you said Calgary.
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh. Yeah. I don't know. I
See-
think Edmonton loses there. I don't know if BC can take one from Sask or Calgary.
Well,
honestly.
see, Calgary goes to BC November 2nd, so they're in BC where anything, like Carter said, sorry, anything can happen there. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a really entertaining finish to the season.
Oh, no doubt. Especially if you're a Lions fan.
Yeah.
Now, who do you guys think the first to go in the offseason should be for Toronto?
Well, we learned today on Tuesday that Jim Pop has been relieved of his duties. So,
We're not going to say
um,
who's replaced with yet, though. We have that
no,
coming up. Yep.
I think that they're gonna do a like. I honestly think they're gonna do a full house sweep there. They are gonna clean out that place, and they're gonna start swapping people out. Like you might see people like Darrell Walker walk this year. He just makes too much money, and I mean, James Wilder might leave. It might be mutual between them because he's not getting the carries. So, I think I don't think you can say one person because I think they're gonna do a clean sweep of that place.
Oh, this team's blowing up. Like this team and Ottawa are gonna just like I don't know what those teams are gonna be next year.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah,
those Yeah, that's all I can say. Like
like
I really have no idea what's gonna happen with them. They have so much work to do.
I agree. I mean, if you're comparing Toronto and Ottawa, I think Toronto at least has some better pieces there. But
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. It's hard. Yeah, I think you have to completely blow up the coaching staff, front office. You're definitely gonna have to fix your personnel a little bit.
Well, interesting news out of Toronto today too. Corey Chamberlain was asked if they asked him to take just the offensive coordinator job and
Or
not
you mean
head
the
coach, would
defensive
he stay?
coordinator?
Yeah, sorry. He said no. Like he would. He's only staying on as head coach and defensive coordinator. And if they try to strip him, he wants out.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he's probably gone then. Is with
Yeah,
that kind of
and
signals.
I think Maple Leafs sports entertainment, like they're gonna really try to put their hands on the team this year, and we'll talk about it later. But who they signed and why they did it for their GM, like I think that they're really gonna try to turn this franchise around. I don't think it's gonna put fans in seats, but they're gonna try to turn the team.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then for our final question about this game, uh, Mike Riley, he has the most passing yards and touchdowns in the league. How is he successful, but his team has struggled?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I think his defense is a big part of that blame. Like, they've let up some pretty bad scores against them. Um, so yeah, like I think he's done what he's been able to do, but he's also been hit for 3 quarters of the season. He was getting hit almost like basically every second play. So I don't think it's his fault. I really think it's not to put the blame on the rest of the team, but I think it's a lot of other factors, and the big one is the defense.
Um, I'm thinking with Mike Riley, and the reason why his numbers look so good right now is just because how many touchdowns did he have? 5 this week.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like he's been having those kinds of weeks, sort of like every other week now, kind of where they're like where he'll just absolutely torch a team, and it'll be like ridiculous numbers. And now it's starting to even out that bad start of the year. So I feel like just it sort of looks like it's out of whack just because of how crazy good he's doing compared to how bad it was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, good
Yeah,
point.
that's fair. BC, their offense has looked really good, especially later in the year. Duron Carter looks to have figured it out.
Yeah, he does.
John White has looked great. Um, and even their offensive line, after they kind of fired their coach, they're looking good too. So
Yeah,
I just
people
think
thought he was a scapegoat, but I mean, it's almost turned the team around
it's
quite a bit.
working. Like, yeah, everyone is like, oh, you can't blame it all on the offensive line coach, but their old line's playing like they're playing pretty well right now. So I mean,
Yeah,
maybe that was a part of the problem, and we just didn't see it.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I think you have to in the off season. I think you try to keep most of the critical pieces in that offense, and you look to kind of get some help on the defensive side. I think Sean Lemon has helped a lot on that D
Oh
line,
yeah,
and adding him. But I think you probably could add some guys in that linebacking core, that secondary, to help out the team.
yeah. I was gonna say the secondary needs some help on that team. They got Aaron Grimes and I think Anthony Orange, but Yeah, there's definitely some room for improvement on that team, but like you said, Jimmy, build around it, and I think they can succeed next year and do a lot better.
So on to the CFL fantasy segment of our podcast. So for value picks this week, uh, you got very slim pickings. It's I just have Caleb Hawley at around $3,000 and Hergy Mayala at 2,500. Or are there any guys that are 3,500 and under that you would consider picking?
The only ones like if you're that desperate and you need someone that low, yours are great. The only ones I would add would be maybe Jimmy Ralph with Toronto and Richard Sedani with Calgary. And they're not high scoring guys. They'll maybe give you 5 points or so, but I mean, if you're left with under 3,500, they're not bad options.
Yeah, I think you did a pretty good job with that one, like with that select couple of players. Know, I mean, with Mayala doing, what he did last week, I mean, I'm not surprised he got him on there now. Um, yeah, I mean, like you said, slim pickings can't really do much besides those if you're looking for like cheap options that are actually viable.
Yeah, true. And I know Calgary, they've made a dedicated effort to involve Mayala more in their offense. So I think he's a good pick if you're looking for someone cheap. And who else did I have on there? Caleb Hawley coming back. He's I think that slot receiver in Ottawa's offense, so he's gonna just see a lot of targets. So he's kind of gonna be blessed with volume there and get points that way rather than you know any other way. It's just Ottawa doesn't have any weapons.
Mm-hmm.
So the best positional options this week, I have three quarterbacks. I have Vernon Adams at $11,000, Mike Riley at just over 10,000, and McLeod Bethel Thompson at $8,300. What do you guys think of that?
I think it's pretty good. I'm going a little risky at the moment. I have Cody Fajardo in against Calgary. Um, Once I find out who Toronto's starter is, if it's McLeod Bethel Thompson, I'm gonna slap him in.
Well, I mean, I made the mistake of not going with Mike Riley last week because he's sort of been, my continuous. He's been my Duron Carter, if you will.
Oh,
But I didn't pick him last week, and my God, was that dumb. So you best believe I'm going back to him.
yeah, true.
Returning to Edmonton.
Oh yeah, that'll
Yeah,
be a
that's
revenge
also
game
going to
for
be a
him.
good one.
But yeah, I think they announced McLeod's going to be the starter for this game, so that's why he's
Ooh.
on the list. Fajardo again, I wouldn't take him just because I don't like that matchup. Um,
Yeah, it's
I,
risky.
yeah, and I don't. It's really hard to find cheap quarterbacks. Like all of the quarterbacks are ridiculously expensive now. So, but yeah, I think McLeod will put up good numbers. And now for running backs, I have Andrew Harris at $9,400, John White at just under 8,000, William Stanback at just under 7,300, and Don Jackson at over 6,400, and Shaq Cooper with Gable being hurt. He's currently not listed in fantasy, so I can't tell you his price. What do you guys think of that?
I think pretty good. I got John White and Stanback in my lineup. I mean, you could throw in Andrew Harris. He'll probably have a decent game. They're in Winnipeg, so he should play better. But you're going risky if you're picking someone like Powell this week against Calgary's defense. James Wilder's an interesting pick, but there's just so much inconsistency in Toronto. It's really hard to pick him. So I think you nailed it pretty good there.
Yeah, I mean, in as my running back duo, I've got Don Jackson and John White. So two guys that you listed there. I like the rest of the names there as well. I mean, if you're, I mean, I don't think Harris really justifies the price tag at the moment, just with how he played last game. So I decided to go with a little bit of the cheaper options, but still really good, options at running back.
It makes sense. The reason I have Harris in there is because his matchup's really good this week against a Montreal defense that surrenders a lot of points against the run, whereas Saskatchewan's kind of a lockdown defense. So I think you kind of look for a kind of more of a bounce back game from Harris this week. Now, for receivers, I have Brian Burnham at just under 11,000, Darrell Walker at just under $9,000, and Devere Posey at 6,600, Deron Carter at just under or over 5,400, and Juan Bray at just over 4,800. Devon Smith at just over 4,000, and Josh Huff at just a little over $3,500. What do you guys think?
Pretty good. The only one I question is Quan Bray this week. Being in Winnipeg, and I'm sure Winnipeg is ticked off for losing their last couple games here. So, it's that one's a little up in the air for me. The only other guy I have is Ricky Collins, which is really risky too with Edmonton. There's just a lot of inconsistency there, but with the dollar amounts at 49, he is the only guy I could kind of slot in there. So,
Yeah, I'm going with I actually am going with Quan Bray this week because
ooh,
when I was filling out my lineup, I realized that I had around 7,000 left to fill in my flex and a receiver, so I ended up going with Mayala and Quan Bray for those spots.
Makes sense.
nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, like I like Quan Bray. I trust Quan Bray, so he's going to be in there as long as Vernon Adams is the quarterback. I'm going to keep him on, especially with him doing returns a bit too. Although with Mario Alford having a good game, that might be in jeopardy. Yeah, overall, I think Quan will have a decent game, regardless of the matchup, especially with how Winnipeg's defense looked recently.
Yeah, I hope so too. I mean, he's been putting up basically over 10 points a game, but I mean, he had zero against BC. So I think there's a little bit of risk being in Winnipeg. That's the part that concerns me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, it's just Winnipeg's defense has been slipping, and the chemistry. That's why he's there. Anyone else?
No, I can't think of anybody else right
no,
now.
you got it.
Yep, and Deron Carter made the list. Taylor.
Oh, absolutely.
He's
About time.
looked better and better. Yep.
22
So
points last week, 7 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown.
I can confidently recommend you Deron Carter in CFL fantasy now.
Time.
Now, for the team defense people, what I have is if you're insisting on picking a defense this week, I have Toronto with Will Arndt starting. I just don't think that they're going to produce that much. So I think Toronto could just be the way to go this week.
Yeah, I agree. The only one I would think about, and it's very risky, is the BC Lions. They're $4,300, but playing Logan Kilgore in Edmonton, it's Mike Riley's return to Edmonton again. So I think there's a chance they could have a good game against them, and especially facing elimination. So that's a risky one, but that's the only other one I'd advise.
I mean, yeah, I've been pretty adamant. I think ever since starting CFL fantasy this year, a couple weeks in, I've only ever done a defense once, and yeah, this I'm not adding a second week this week. Not choosing a defense. I don't see the point spending your money on a defense when when they get you 10 points. That's supposed to be a good game, from a defense. I don't like how I'm spending money on just 10 points like that when you can divvy up that cash somewhere else and get just better positional players.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Defenses aren't really worth what they expect you to pony up for them
Hmm.
most of the time. So that's why I also picked Toronto. Their defense is cheap. They're 3,200, which is the
Yeah.
minimum right now. So yeah, I think if you have to, I'm personally not going with the defense right now. So I would rock with Toronto if you have to. So moving on to our lock picks. I have the one, the only Andrew Anabolic Harris. Again, I like the matchup, and I think against a poor Montreal run defense, he's going to do fairly well. and just probably having limited touches, he's probably going to be a bit more fresh for this game too.
Yeah, no, good point. I got John White in this week for my lock. The past 6 weeks, he's had one game with under 10 points in fantasy for rushing. So, I mean, last week 121 yards. The week before, he only had 80 yards, but he had a touchdown. So, I think he's a good safe pick this week against Edmonton.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going with the old faithful. I'm going with Mike Riley. I He's usually my lock, and there's a reason for that. He gets his numbers now. So, 5 touchdowns. You can't argue that. And coming against Edmonton in a must-win situation, I think he's gonna produce not the same numbers, but he's gonna do pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's about right. That's a fair reason to pick Mike Riley. He's got a favorable matchup this week. Edmonton's secondary hasn't been great for the second half of the year, so he's certainly a good player to go with this week. So for news this week, Will Arndt has been named the Ottawa Red Black starter against Toronto. Congratulations to Montreal for clinching their first playoff spot since 2014. And some CFL/NFL news, Duke Williams scored his first touchdown in his first NFL game with the Buffalo Bills. Riders Cameron Judge got a concussion against Winnipeg, and he's unsure if he'll play this week. Jim Pop was fired by the Argos, as we talked about earlier. Now his replacement is Mike Pinball Clemens.
Whew.
Is the new GM for the he's the new GM. So what does he bring to the table in the Argos front office?
See, that's interesting. Like he was talking today about building the football culture there, but he's been on the sidelines. But I mean, he hasn't been involved in the behind the scenes stuff since 2009, I believe. So I think it's going to take some adjusting. But I really think and I really hope that they can turn things.
Yeah, I think it's gonna help. Yeah, it's really gonna help establishing a player culture. It's yeah, that's all I can really say. Don't know too much about the man, so yeah, hopefully he turns things around, and hopefully the Argos actually get some players who want to be there and gets a bit of a following.
Oh yeah, but yeah, with pinball, it's I just I don't know what his front office experience is. I know he's a CFL legend. Um, so I think yeah, he's just a solid. I think it's a good choice because he is familiar with the organization and its history. But at the same time, I don't know his experience, so I'm kind of mixed on the hire as it goes.
Time will tell.
Yep. And then CFL ran a simulation, and there is a 52% chance, almost 53, that the BC Lions make the playoffs over the Edmonton Eskimos. Uh, so who do you guys see making it of the two?
Uh, I think Edmonton has like it's in their hands. If they lose or if they win one game, then they lock up that playoff spot. So, like I think BC does it, but it's up to Edmonton whether they do or not.
Yeah, I agree with the simulation this time. I think BC's got a slight edge. But yeah, like you said, Edmonton's only got to win one, so that's why it's a lot more close than what I feel like it would be like if Edmonton had to win like two, it would probably be like 70% to 30% for BC.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, for sure. Um, I think BC has the edge here. I think they're gonna beat Edmonton. Spoiler alert for predictions, but I mean, clearly Edmonton is trending in the wrong direction. BC looks like they figured it out, so I think they beat Edmonton, and I think maybe they have a chance of stealing one more game and they sneak into the playoffs over Edmonton. And so there has been trade talks between the Bombers and the Argos over Zach Collaros being traded to Winnipeg. But the Argos have several QBs available. Which of them would you take and why?
well, yeah, that's the thing. They have 5 quarterbacks on their roster. If it was me, I would be pushing for McLeod Bethel Thompson. But he has the one of the lower contracts. Like Franklin's isn't astonishing, but McLeod signed for almost a league minimum. So, and I think he's been the best out of all those guys. Zach has his health issues, so I'm picking McLeod.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I think McLeod is the best guy to take. I mean, I think that Winnipeg would be offering so much for Bethel Thompson, and what are the odds that Toronto will actually, get Bethel Thompson back? So for me, I'd almost take the trigger on this deal, and then like at least if he walked away in the off season, at least you're getting something for him. And who knows, Bethel Thompson might even dip out of Winnipeg, and you'll have another shot at signing him again.
Exactly. It's like
Sure.
a loan almost.
I guess for me, it's I think that Macbeth he is the best quarterback, but at the same time, he's going to cost you a lot in terms of assets you'd have to be giving up. And and then Kalaros, I don't think he's good enough to step in and play right now. I mean, he just started throwing a football again a couple weeks ago. So I think you kind of go in the middle ground there, and I think you pick up James Franklin because he's not going to cost you as much to get. And he's still a capable quarterback, I think. I know he's struggled in Toronto, but that seems to be more of a system issue than a him issue. So I think if you have to get one of the quarterbacks, I think Franklin's going to be probably best bet in terms of price. And yeah, I think McLeod he stays in Toronto. That offense was fairly effective when he was running the show. Uh, so I think they might want to keep him just because he fits the system the best of the quarterbacks they have. You guys got anything to add?
I'm
Um,
good.
yeah, it's just it's a weird situation, especially with well for us, like this is all gonna be like all mute tomorrow, like depending on what happens.
Yeah,
But
true.
like, I mean, right now, the night before, it's crazy because I feel like out of Bethel Thompson, Caleras, and Franklin, literally any of those names could pop up as like the headline trade.
Absolutely.
Over under one of them gets traded, or 1.5. Sorry, 1.5 over under.
Uh, the under, I think. Yeah, I'm gonna say one gets traded.
I'm also going under because I think that they want to keep two quarterbacks so they could negotiate with both and hopefully keep one for next year. Because if they trade away two, that's almost putting their eggs in one basket there.
I'm going over. I'm saying 2 because
Really?
Ooh.
yeah,
Who do you think? Who do you think gets dealt?
I think both Kolaros and Franklin get dealt because
Yeah.
for a couple of reasons. One, um, Franklin, there's no chance he resigns in Toronto. They've made it clear they don't really want him, and I don't think he really wants to be there either.
He doesn't. No.
And Zach probably never sees the football field again. After this season, just for his own health.
Yeah.
And
See, I'm
then
gonna I'm gonna totally disagree with you on that though. Because
really,
Toronto is looking to sign Caleros long term, whether that's 2 years, but like when
why?
Winnipeg I don't know, but Winnipeg reached out to them today and said, "Look, we want Caleros," and they said, "Well, how about you take Franklin instead?" So
Oh
I think they
wow.
got
That's
plans.
true.
Yeah, I think they
That's
have
true. It
plans
is
to keep
strange.
Caleros around,
It
and
is strange for
I don't
Toronto
think
to try
so.
and hold on to him.
I
yeah,
don't
and
understand that at all. I think he
Well,
retires.
well, here's the thing. What other reason would you want to hold on to him for?
Yeah,
exactly.
like he's not
Like
going to
I'm
start
sure.
for you next year.
Oh, he could.
Well, I'm sure
Probably not.
If Caleres is going to retire, I'm assuming that he would have let Toronto know by now, and they're just keeping it under wraps, saying like,
Yeah,
"Hey,
I
I'm gonna retire."
I
So
think for
like,
health reasons he should retire. Will he? I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see him. I just don't see him being around next year, being the guy next year, especially in a talented free agent class of quarterbacks this year. I don't see him sticking around for the Argos. I see him probably getting dealt to either Edmonton or Winnipeg, and then same with Franklin. One of them will get dealt to the other place, and Toronto will try to stack up on assets.
Hmm.
So on to our game day Q segment. First game of the week, Ottawa versus Toronto. Will Art perform well against the Argonauts secondary?
I think he's got a chance to perform well, but whether it happens or not will be different. I mean, it's his first game starting, so I think it could happen. And this week's the week to do it, if any week.
Yeah, how scary would it be if he had like an awful week against Toronto here?
Yeah, really. I think he has a decent week. I don't think he's going to be the Toronto or Ottawa's answer at quarterback. Yeah, I don't think they have an answer in house to that problem, honestly.
Hmm.
So next is Saskatchewan versus Calgary. Can Sask solidify that they're the best of the West and win this game?
You know what? I think they can. It's a totally different team when they lost 37-10 early on in the season, and I think Saskatchewan has a really good chance of taking it in Calgary.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like Saskatchewan can solidify. I best in the West. Like, it's weird because like I'd still put Saskatchewan and Calgary, regardless of how this game goes. I'd put them like with each other. But if Saskatchewan wins, I'd edge Saskatchewan over Calgary if they win. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I think Sask could probably win this game. I just hope they don't get it into their heads too much of how bad they lost the first time. But I think overall they come out with a win in this game after kind of steamrolling the Blue Bombers here.
I think for this game, whoever scores first, whoever scores the first touchdown, I'll say, gonna win the game.
Yeah, that might not be too far off.
Yeah.
So on to Montreal versus Winnipeg. Can Winnipeg bounce back against a tough opponent? Their losses are kind of starting to pile up here.
Yeah, you know what? I don't think they're going to do it this week. Montreal is rolling. You know, they got Vernon Adams back last week, and things didn't fire on all cylinders. But I think they're going to this week. Like, well, it's going to be tough though with it being in Winnipeg. I think that's going to be a really close game.
I think I'm actually gonna take the opposite stance, a rare disagreement in the CFL podcast. Um, I think that Winnipeg is gonna do it just because they've got that fire underneath them, and I'm sure a couple of the players. I know for a fact that a couple of the players are not happy with Vernon Adams. Um, so they're excited for this game, and I think the defense especially is really gonna take it and try and keep them just to as few points as they can get.
Yeah, I think with Winnipeg being at home, I think that makes all the difference in the world for this team. So I think yeah they can bounce back, but it will be a close game because Montreal has proven that they can really beat anybody this year. So yeah, I think Winnipeg can pull this off, but they'll have to really work for it. Now on to BC versus Edmonton. Can Edmonton put up a competitive fight against BC?
Yeah, see that. Oh, I like. I don't think BC is going to score 55 for the rest of their games this year, but I think it'll be closer. But I think BC walks away with it by at least 10 points.
I'm thinking around the same, maybe a little bit. Like I think Edmonton's gonna give BC a good run, but I think BC's gonna edge it out.
Yeah, I think I'm more on Taylor's side of this. I think BC is gonna beat Edmonton, and it's gonna be a definitive win. It's not gonna be like a 3 point, draw out.
Hmm.
But just in general, the way the teams are trending with Edmonton kind of fading out as the season ends, and BC looks like they've finally figured it out. So I think BC pulls off the win in this game.
I just really hope it's not too little, too late for BC.
You're right. It'd be a shame.
Yeah, same here, because they're clearly the better team right now. So
Oh yeah.
I'm cheering for them to win. So let's hope that comes to fruition.
Come on, Duran Carter.
So on to our last segment of the week, our picks for next week's games. I have Toronto beating Ottawa, obviously, because Ottawa's just I think they lose out this year. I don't know. I have no confidence in that team. I think Saskatchewan beats Calgary. I think that'll probably be the closest game of the week in terms of differential. So that one can kind of go either way in my opinion. And then Winnipeg versus Montreal, I am going with Winnipeg. Again, mostly because they're at home, and I think they kind of need this win to get their confidence back. And again, with the way these teams are trending, I have BC beating Edmonton.
Yeah, I think we had the same disagreement with Montreal winning and losing last week, there, Jimmy. But I have Toronto winning, Saskatchewan beating Winnipeg, or sorry, Saskatchewan beating Calgary, Montreal beating Winnipeg this week, and BC beating Edmonton.
And I've got Toronto over Ottawa because obviously I've got Saskatchewan over Calgary. That's actually so much of a toss up. I had to scroll down and check my pick just to make sure I didn't mess that up. I think Winnipeg is going to take it over Montreal again at home. I feel like they have the chip on their shoulder because of what happened last time they played. And I think that BC is just a better team than Edmonton right now, so I'm picking them to win that game.
That makes sense. That concludes the show. You can find our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or SoundCloud. We upload every single Wednesday for as long as the season goes, and then we'll talk about what we're going to do from there. But yeah, like the podcast, share it with your friends, and if you're on YouTube, subscribe. This is the True North CFL podcast signing off.